1. The background is that I'm a musician, and a speaker blew up a month after the warranty expired. Figures. So even though I didn't have any warranty left, I still wanted the official repair guys to take a look at it. This is a business representing one of the world's largest brands that actually bought the original company that made my speakers. So I expected to be dealing with professionals. I brought the speaker to them. They said they'd take a look and quote me for the repairs. So far, so good. The quote took weeks. Then it took them about 3 months to repair it, apparently having to wait, or have forgotten about, for the part that needed replacing. At this point, I was already mildly annoyed. I felt that months for a part replacement was pushing it, even with the supply chain issues. But eventually I got an email with a notification that I could collect my speaker upon payment in cash. No way to wire transfer the money, and the bill was €330 and a bit. It was explicitly mentioned that they didn't accept cards. Enter the malicious compliance. Because I'm a musician and from time to time I go busking, I find the art of trying to entertain people who have no interest in being entertained challenging. Anyway, that means I collect a lot of coins in the process. They wanted cash? I will give them cash. I counted out the money and whatever coins I had in my money box. I put it in 2 heavy plastic containers and went to collect my speaker. So they got me my speaker. Everything seemed fine, and then the guy mentioned I still needed to pay. I produced my boxes. There was an audible swallow. The guy asked if I had larger money. I offered to pay by card. He said I couldn't. Well, then I don't have other ways of paying them. It was amazing how quickly the 3 men working there passed this job to the only woman in the store, because she got the honor of counting this money. I sat down and waited. It took well over half an hour, and she claimed I was short. Now, I couldn't have been, so I went to try and check on her work, but our systems of counting were nothing alike, hers being the erroneous one. After several minutes of trying to work out what's wrong, she spotted an error in her system, and explained why she miscounted by almost €120. I took my speaker to my car. I heard someone say that maybe they should invest in a counting machine. Yeah, that's the problem here, guys. The manual counting. Great deduction. 2. This was a very long time ago, about 10 years. She was my first serious relationship. I was about 18 at that time. As you can imagine, being my first relationship, I loved her very much. So it was like a dream, and after maybe a year, we started planning future and whatever, but she was 17 at that time, so when her mother found out we were also sleeping together, she wasn't very happy. And at the time I was angry, but now as a father I could understand. Everything was okay after her mother found out. But maybe 2 months after, my ex told me she can't see me because her mother won't allow her to. I was confused as to why now, but whatever, we were still together at least after school for a few hours. After that, it was worse every day. At some point we were together for only an hour, maybe 2 times a week. As you might guess, we basically had fun time, and she went home. At this point I was very confused because her friends started to dislike me, and her mother didn't want to talk to me anymore. And it even got to the point where if I wanted to see her, I could only go and walk her from school to home, and that was it. She told me that she can't go on Facebook because her mother keeps checking it, so she can't text me, but she made other accounts to text me from, and she always seemed to be very cold when she did so. At this point, I decided all is lost, and I can't really do anything to get her, so I decided to quit this relationship. I was very depressed because I told her I loved her, and it was very hard and confusing that I couldn't see her at all. She agreed. Maybe 6 months later, I became friends with benefits with her best friend, and she told me what happened. She was sleeping with 2 other guys while in a relationship with me, and her mother never forbid her from meeting with me. It was all a story to get time for her, and all those Facebook accounts was to talk to other guys because she was giving them passwords. I even met one day with her mother in the shopping center and confronted her about not allowing her daughter to talk to me, and she told me she was pissed about me breaking up with her, a long time before we broke up. After we talked a little, we realized she had no idea about what happened, and she was very sorry and felt sad about my ex. Fast forward 4 years. I didn't hear, talk, or text with her. I was gone for work in another country, and sometimes I'd come back to visit my family. On one of my visits with my family, we met in the city, and all I said was hi, and the same with her. I came home and found a message from her. I checked her Facebook profile before answering, and she seemed to be engaged and had a 1-year-old child. It was hard because I never recovered from what she did to me, but I texted back and we talked a little. By that time, I was taking a lot better care of myself and looked quite appealing to women. The next day, she texted me that she wanted to go somewhere with me to talk and stuff like that. Since I wasn't home a lot, I needed to get a haircut and asked her where to go. She picked me up and walked me to one of her friends to get my haircut. She gave me many compliments, and her body language was talking for her. I knew exactly what she wanted. I came home and I had a text from her saying how amazing it was being with me again, and she then asked me if I would like to come to her place, at least until I go back to the country where I was working. I played along, asked her for some hot pictures, and sent her some of mine. And here comes my PettyRevenge. I took screenshots of our whole conversation, all pictures she sent me and texts where she wrote that she wanted to have sex with me, and how she misses me and so on, and sent it to her boyfriend. I told him what she did to me, and what she was planning to do with me behind his back. At first he was pissed and insulted me, but the next day texted me and apologized, and also thanked me. Long story short, they broke up. And after all that, I felt very relieved. I saved this poor man and taught her a valuable lesson. After that, she found another guy and they're now married. Now I'm happily married, and I don't know what's going on with my ex, and I honestly don't care. The only reason I'm writing this now is to share a petty story with all of you. 3. This took place my senior year in high school, 1986 to 1987. This story is about a conflict between my family and a neighboring family. The setting: we lived in identical houses. The two homes were built into a hill. Our house was 3 feet higher on the hill than their house, and the area between our homes was narrow, only 8 to 10 feet wide. There was a retaining wall that was about 3 feet high that held back the hill on their side and stopped at ground level on our side, since we were higher on the hill. I shared a bedroom with my younger sister. We had a bunk bed. Our bedroom window lied up to their back porch, and when their porch light was on, the light flooded our room. My cousin lived with us at the time. We didn't have enough room for my cousin to have his own bed, but we had come to an odd arrangement. Sunday through Thursday, he used my bed and I slept on the couch. I had to be up earlier than my youngest sister or my cousin for school. Then Friday and Saturday night, I slept in my bed and he slept on the couch. The problem we had was that our drug-dealing neighbors had people coming to their home at all hours of the day and night. They had a very bright bulb for their porch back door, and when it was on at night, it filled our room with light. We tried talking to the mom, but if she turned the light off, it was promptly turned back on. We tried covering the window with a heavy blanket, and the light was very intense around the edges of the blanket. Honestly, the light made our shared room feel like we were sleeping in full daylight. This light was on 24/7, so all 3 of us were seriously affected. Our cousin, my sister, and I were fed up, so we started trying to think of creative solutions. Some were silly, but we hit upon a plan. We had a good idea about when the least people would be home or awake. The mom worked days, the drug-dealing sons were typically asleep in the afternoons, and the teens would go out to see friends after school. So we took a wooden dining chair and quietly walked up to the retaining wall. We couldn't see anyone at the windows, so my cousin hopped down and I handed the chair to him. He placed the chair and, using his shirt to protect his hand from the hot bulb, turned the bulb just enough to turn it off. He then hopped down and raised the chair. I grabbed it, and then my cousin hopped to the top of the wall. I don't recall him needing a hand up. The whole clandestine raid took less than 30 seconds. The lights stayed unlit for several blissful nights. When they either tightened the bulb or replaced it, we had no idea which, we would wait 1 to 4 days, and then we would repeat the process. After the light bulb or multiple light bulbs kept failing, they finally gave up on the porch light. It took about 3 months, but we sure were happy to have the unlit bedroom window. 4. So about a year ago, I was getting some branches trimmed on a big evergreen tree in my backyard. The arborist told me I needed to have my power line and internet line disconnected so it wouldn't be hit by falling branches. I called the electrical company and they agreed to be out at 8 a.m. on the day of service. Easy. Then I called the internet provider. I explained the situation and they transferred me. Hello, I'd like to schedule someone to disconnect my internet for tree trimming. Oh, we don't offer that. Let me transfer you. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was transferred around different departments for 2 hours. I kept getting transferred back to people I had previously talked to, but everyone seemed equally appalled by my request. I would explain, disconnect the internet cable so the tree branches don't fall on it. But it was like I was speaking a foreign language. Finally, I reached someone on the phone who offers a solution. Sure thing, I can send someone out. It's $150 to send someone out, and then you pay per hour. The person on the phone explained. You're kidding. I have to pay for them to come disconnect the line? Will they come back for free? It will be $150 for each time someone comes, plus $100 for each hour. I was beyond frustrated at this point, so of course I didn't schedule anyone to come out. The morning of the tree trimming, I was out on a ladder with rubber gloves and a pair of scissors ready to cut the internet line. Luckily, when the reliable electrical folks showed up to disconnect the power, "While you're up there, can you disconnect the internet?" I asked. "Are you sure?" the electrical guy asked, looking concerned. I looked pretty fucking determined at this point, being on the ladder and all. So the electrical guy did me a solid and cut the cable. The tree guys came and went. The next day I called the internet provider saying that my internet stopped working and I had no idea why. Then I went to work. The internet repair guy got sent to my house for free and then called me pissed off. "Who cut your tree?" he asked. "They cut your wire. This is a ton of work to fix, so I'm going to charge him for it." I told him it definitely wasn't the tree guys, as they had come a week prior and my internet had just stopped working. It ended up taking him 5 hours to fix. The repair guy was bitching that if the internet had just been disconnected, it would have been an easy reconnection job. But now he had to wire down the road to their main fiber line. Too bad for the internet provider. I'm just glad it was all free. 5. Many years ago, I worked for an organization providing frontline customer service. It was a decent place to work, but our manager had lots of rules. One of the rules was that we could not do any personal printing with the printers at work. If we did, we were expected to pay 50 cents per page for black and white printing and $1 per page for color. I'm not sure who made this rule, but the manager was constantly reminding us. Our desks were not assigned, meaning any day you could be sitting at any desk depending on your assigned tasks for the day. One day I was interviewing for another job within the organization, but at another location. Prior to the interview, the manager of the other location asked me if I'd mind printing a copy of my resume and bringing it with me, as their printers were down for the day. I said no problem and figured I'd print it at work since it was work-related. I was sitting at a desk that did not have a printer at it. The closest printer was located between the manager's desk and an employee desk, so I printed it and stood up to go get it. Before I go to the printer, my manager got there first. My first print job went ahead of hers. When she saw what I had printed, she said, "OP, this looks like a personal print job." I explained it wasn't, but she digressed, and since it had nothing to do with our day-to-day work, I had to pay $2 for 4 black and white pages. I begrudgingly paid up. I asked her what happened to the money, and she said she always put it in the Christmas party fund. All right. A few weeks later, I was sitting at the desk with the printer at it. It was lunchtime. and everyone except my manager agreed to go to a nearby restaurant for lunch. I had walked out of our building and realized I forgot my wallet. I quickly ran back to get it. When I got to my desk, I could hear the printer going. I was curious what was being printed as it was spitting out page after page. I quickly glanced at the pile and saw at least 100 pages printed in color, announcing a sweet 16 for Trista, our manager's daughter. It very obviously belonged to my manager. She came out of the bathroom a moment later and seemed shocked to see me standing there. I picked up the pile and passed it to her and told her our Christmas party fund was going to be getting a big boost. She said nothing, but looked really uncomfortable. A few weeks later, our district manager made his quarterly visit. He talked about the upcoming Christmas party and how excited he was for it. I decided it was time for some petty revenge. I raised my hand and said, just wondering how much we've accumulated this year for the Christmas party from print jobs. He looked so confused and asked me to explain what I meant, so I told him our manager's rule. He got really quiet and said he'd have to review this. The next day, my manager sent an email saying the printing rule was something she was misinformed on and would be abolished immediately. Me, being the little disturber I am, hit reply all and asked what would happen to the already accumulated funds. Someone already said we should have a nice healthy fund for a pizza lunch, and everyone agreed. The next day I hear my manager ordering 10 pizzas for lunch. Also, she used her own personal credit card to pay for it all. Do I think she was pocketing the printing money all along? Absolutely. But it was fun making her sweat, and then having to spend nearly $300 the next day to make up for it. $30 for a large pizza is very standard where I'm from. I ordered a pizza for supper last night, and with tax, tip, and delivery, I paid $36. Our manager ordered us pizza from Boston Pizza, a Canadian chain. Google them and you'll see their prices. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 194. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Now, before you head off, if you hit that like button, it lets YouTube know that you liked the video. That's very important for them recommending it to other people. And of course, recommend the video to anyone you think might enjoy it. Okay, let's see now. Okay, yes, we'd have a little shout out to give today, and that goes to the author of the first story in this video. And their YouTube channel is actually called Celtic Folk Bard, and I will include a link next to story number 1 to their YouTube channel if you'd like to go take a look. And you'll be able to hear just what kind of musician he is. Great guitar playing, great voice, and even if just to be in awe at his beauty, he's a fine-looking fella indeed. And if you yourself would like a shout-out, you can send that along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. And you can find that in the description of this and every video. But that being said, then let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, inspired by something I saw on Twitter, favorite television late-night talk show host. Now, this is something, of course, that has been going on for decades. You know, from pre-Johnny Carson, but he's the biggest name I can think of off the top of my head. And like in the UK, you've got people like Michael Parkinson. I think even Clive Anderson had one at one point. Actually, yes, he did. I remember the Bee Gees walking out on Clive Anderson at one point. That was memorable. It was a silly thing, whether he made kind of like an offhanded comment, you know, like a sort of like deliberately rude thing that you could do with friends. But I guess he wasn't that friendly with the Bee Gees. But that being said, I don't really care for any of them personally. I don't really rate any of them, except one. And that one is Craig Ferguson. And that's mostly because he didn't really seem to follow the rules of being a late-night talk show host. He basically just did whatever he wanted. He'd get people on, he made them feel like human beings when talking to them, and they just chat. About the silliest stuff you might chat with even. If they were there to promote a movie, fine, whatever, it doesn't matter, who cares? Take care of that, the basic business, and then, you know, just chit-chat, it's fine. And he would even have some people who would return frequently just because they liked going on his show, probably more than like going on a lot of them, because there was less artifice there. And I think personally, speaking for my people, I think a lot of that comes from him being Scottish, albeit he is an American citizen. And it really, although I was familiar with his work, I think the first thing I saw him in was Red Dwarf, it really made me a fan of him as an entertainer. But you might have different feelings, and maybe you know some I haven't heard of, maybe you know some in the same vein, and I'd really like to see some of your favorites mentioned in the comments. Just right below, you can leave a comment. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.